in Singapore, and he quickly rose to leadership roles in education, eventually becoming head of the Mechanical Technology Department at the Center for Industrial Technology and Enterprise in Cebu. Transitioning to Emirates Global Aluminium, he served as a plant training supervisor and OEM training coordinator, focusing on talent development. He holds a master's in manufacturing management with distinction from the University of Hertfordshire and is a licensed mechanical engineer and teacher in the Philippines. Additionally, he holds certifications in training and assessments. Recently, he served as an internal verifier, ensuring competency in an assessment program at Kent, Muscat, Oman, and has recently joined Kent International Arabia Limited in Abu Dhabi as an L&D training specialist. Might I add, he is also the Best Presentation awardee of the Leadership in Engineering track at the APM 4.0 Lead Conference and Exhibition last year of October 2023. And he is here to talk about the job and task analysis, a basis for competency standards development. So, everyone, I would like to invite over and let's give a welcome round of applause to Mr. Edwin Heredia. Sir Edwin, are you there?
Thank, thank you so much, Pat. I appreciate your kind introduction.
Yes,
I would like to greet everybody a pleasant afternoon in PH and morning here in UAE. So I wish allow me to share my screen now for me to hop on our. Kindly let me know if that's okay. Is the screen visible from your end?
yes, sir.
Okay, hold on for a while. Oh, okay. So the I believe so that in every event, oh, hang on for a while. I will start my video. Hopefully, the streaming will be strong enough to hold this until the end of the session. Uh, the story behind this webinar, if I may do so to tell you, it was a discussion between Wens and myself last year. I think it was on the second week of December. But I told Wens that there's no guarantee that I can hold it face to face because I am processing my employment again in the Middle East. And he agreed that it can be done through this kind of delivery mode, the webinar, the online mode. And the idea behind why we come up this particular topic, job and task analysis basis for competency standards development, is that we wish, and this is only our wish in among of our wish list in the Association of Maintenance and Reliability Practitioners in the Philippines, is that there must be some kind of competence standards that we can say uh, useful to our industry in the area of operations and maintenance. So that is why I I suggested that probably the very first step that we can do, since we don't have yet a nationally recognized competence standards that up to the level of the requirement of our industry, perhaps we can start with the fundamentals of making a job and task analysis as our basis for developing competency standards. So that is why we are here today. And I am very grateful that you have attended this webinar because I have a feeling that probably we share the same passion about training. May I know how many participants participating now, Pat? Just for me to.
There's currently
visualize
36 of us po here in the room. So,
online? Okay.
yeah.
All right. Okay, good. So that's the story behind, and hopefully our outcome today will serve as your reflection in your individual organization to start with analyzing what would be the critical duties and tasks that should be developed into a standard of practice in your operations and maintenance. Okay, so our objectives for this session, I'm just making an approximation of 1 hour session for just to leave a window for questions and answers and for the raffle activity. The participants will be able to describe the structure of nationally recognized competency standards. What I'm trying to tell here is that our very own TESDA already had a standard, and it is yet on the level of entry or fundamental. And from there, perhaps we can move forward and adopt the standard because the competency standard that TESDA had been implemented in their training regulation is universally formatted. What I'm trying to say is that if you have to look at the standard of Australia, United Kingdom, Scotland, Ireland, Canada, and Korea, and Singapore, it is being formatted on the same structure. So I hope this will help you understand and grasp this the idea behind on how to structure a competency standard that can be helpful in your organization for competency-based training and assessment set up, or even the competency management system that you envisage to establish in your company. So the second one, identify the operations and maintenance key duties and tasks for developing job and task analysis. So what I'm trying to tell here is that once you can get an idea on how to break down a certain job function to duties and tasks, and probably when you're back in your organization, you can have a certain tool to use in making a job and task analysis. And then the last one is that you will be able to construct learning objectives aligned to competency standards, structuring, and format. As I noticed when I started studying the format of TESDA in the mid 2000, as we were invited to join the training in TESDA about competency-based training curriculum development. I noticed that the structure itself is being phrased or stated into a learning objective format. So I am thinking perhaps this is helpful for you to move on or to start with in job and task analysis listing, because the outcome of this listing can be a good baseline information to develop the competency standards that you are planning to. Our discussion today, central to the tool of the competency-based training or the job and task analysis, and example on how I did it in one of the industries that I work with, and some of it I captured from quote unquote from our training in Germany about the research and policy on vocational training system. So the structure of nationally recognized competency standard looks like this. It's quite straightforward. We have certain unit of competency and then break it down to an element, and then the element is supported with performance criteria, and then we have certain range of variables and the evidence guide. So what do you mean by unit of competency here as a list, as the high level uh, characteristic in our list, or high level variable in our list, I would say. Simply, if you have to look to a certain job function, for example, me as a mechanical technician, one of my duty is to interpret engineering drawing. That is one of my duty. I should have that kind of competence that I can interpret engineering drawing. Another one, perhaps I can have a competence like perform engineering measurements. So being a mechanical technician, I should have this kind of duty to perform engineering measurement. So if we have to translate those duties into a competency standard format, the duty that we have known is this one, the unit of competency. And then the unit description can be easily composed by you or any of your subject matter experts. Just a straightforward unit description telling what is this duty or unit of competency all about. I suggest if you are going to develop the, how do you call this, the unit description or the descriptor, some people will say descriptor, it must be a simple sentence. Then later on, we will see how TESDA organize those statement. And then that unit of competency is being supported with element. No, what I have said is that the unit of competency is simply our duty of our job function. So those duties supported with task. So therefore, in a job and task analysis, this element here is simply the task serve as the building block of the duties of the unit of competency. When I say building block, that is the foundation that all of these tasks, if can be performed by our mechanic or our worker, therefore we are confident that our mechanic is competent to perform such a duty. Because the main question here is that how competent is competent? How well is well? How will you measure competency? So from the element, you will notice answering this question, addressing that question, there is performance criteria. Or some people will say, some organization will call it performance standards. So the performance criteria, if you will notice, in every element has a supporting performance criteria as basis or as a reference for you to evaluate and to assess that a certain element already complied with our worker, with our employee. So the question of how well is well and how competent is competent can be answered by this performance criteria. And then moving on to the next stage of documentation of the competence standard is the range of variables. So the range of variables, these are listing of knowledge and topics and information, theoretical information that can support to the element, that can support to the element here. Okay, and criteria. For example, perform engineering measurements. What are the theories that probably can help support in performing this perform engineering measurements? Types of measuring tools. So that is what we call range of variables. Some people in some standard like Australia, they call it like range statement. So on the range statement or the range of variables, the listing of necessary knowledge and information, theoretical input or information that are associated to that particular element are being listed in the range of variables. And then the evidence guide, the last level of our documentation in creating the competence standard, is that it will describe on how the assessment, the workplace assessment, I would say, being conducted. It can be through observation or through oral questioning or through practical demonstration. So the candidate must ensure to illustrate or to demonstrate certain evidence that he is competent of performing this particular unit of competence. So that is basically the structure of nationally recognized competency standard. Now, the question is that, can I adopt this nationally recognized competency standard in our organization? I would say yes, it is. If ever, due to limitation of your workload and time in the industry, if you are catching up the time just to produce a standard, not only just to, but to produce competition standard in your organization, because the training will be on board in the next month or 3 months based on your program, the range of variables can be dropped and the evidence guide from this level, from the high level labeling of our competency standard, unit of competence, element, and performance criteria, this will do. So we can use this already as your starting point or our starting point to proceed further in our onboarding or our delivery. Why? Because the performance criteria already set up, already defined and specified. So for example, you will look for a contractor that can deliver a training because you don't have subject matter experts to to deliver the training in-house. So you can send off this standard in your RFQ, the request for quotation. The specification in your RFQ, it can be this competency standard. So your training provider will look at your standard and they will tell you that, okay, based on these specifications of your standard, we can deliver what you require from us. So at least in your RFQ for purchasing purposes and for justifying the requisition, so a competence standards can be useful as well. Not only to from curriculum development to assessment, but in the aspect of supply chain management, it can be used. This is the format of Philippine TVET competency standard, technical vocational education and training. Obviously, our very own TESDA. And we recognize and appreciated that TESDA had this kind of standard for plant maintenance. This is level one in their standard and their training regulation. As you will notice here, unit of competency, perform plant maintenance work. So meaning the analyst and the curriculum developer, they already define this particular unit of competence or duty. So perform plant maintenance work is one of the unit of competency that a plant maintenance NC1 holder, we call it NC1, the National Certificate Holder, level 1, has this kind of competency. So if breaking down, we have the unit descriptor. Forget about the code because the code is being defined by TESDA. If you would like to have a code, for example, and if you are lucky enough to deal with your IT, and also if we are lucky enough to negotiate our top management that we will make use of our ERP, the Enterprise Resource Planning. It can be Oracle, it can be SAP, if we are lucky enough to have them. This is a good platform wherein we can store our outcome of the job and task analysis, and you can incorporate it into the HR function of the human capital module of any ARP, and then you can establish your own coding based on plant sequencing number that being defined already in your ERP. And then the unit descriptor, you can compose, as I have said, a straightforward and simple sentence that is understandable to all our target group. Because in the plant, we have target group who are in high school graduates. We have target group who are 2-year vocational graduate. We have target group like 3-year diploma of technology graduate. And then we have a target group like bachelor's degree in engineering. So I'd rather suggest that if you have to create the unit descriptor, go to the low level description instead of a very, I would say, mini flower sentence, because it will create multiple interpretation by the people. So look at this. Unit covers the knowledge, skills, and aptitude required to perform plant and unplanned or emergency maintenance work. That is simple. So a high school graduate can understand this kind of unit descriptor. We have to remember, as a training specialist or as an HR or as an engineer, we have to remember that we're working with people who have different background, educational background. So therefore, we will create it in a manner that is easy to understand. So look at this. I would connect this one, the elements of the graphics that I have presented previously. So look at the elements. From the unit of competency, this is now the duty that I have said. The job function here is plant maintenance mechanic. Okay, so the upper level of our analysis tree, the job function is the plant maintenance mechanic, and then the job duty, perform plant maintenance work, and then the tasks associated to this particular duty are these listed: obtain work instructions, dismantle equipment, inspect closely for cause of failure, replace components, troubleshoot machine breakdown. If you notice, the elements statement had been praised with verb at the beginning of the statement, because the idea behind is that the task uh, must be demonstrated to a certain individual. So that is why it is suggested, most of the academics in the vocational system, that we have to start with the verb, adapting the construction of the learning objective. Later on, when we have a slide on learning objective concept, we will understand why it should be stated first with a verb. So it must be an action word at the beginning. For example, for the unit of competency, it's already an action word: perform plant maintenance work. So looking at the right-hand side of the document, the performance criteria, these are the list of specifications and criteria wherein we can say that the candidate able to obtain work instructions. For example, extent of work clearly understood, all materials and tools to be used gathered, work permit obtained. So if these criteria observable by the trainee or observable by the worker, and then we can say that he has achieved this particular element, obtain the work instructions. So these are the statements here, performance criteria, that will answer the question on how well is well, how competent is competent. So from this criteria here, that is why many of the organization that I have met, they are saying that they are running competency-based training and assessment. But if I have to look at the competence management system, they don't have standard for certain discipline. When I say discipline, like mechanical maintenance, electrical maintenance, instrumentation and control maintenance, or even operations and process. So it's difficult to say that it's competency-based training and assessment because we don't have the basis to measure the competency of our worker. So moving on to the document, we have the range of variables. This is the one that I have told you that the different theories behind of performing this or complying this particular unit are listed in here. So don't make a list that is too many. I suggest that is make a list that is doable and functional to support the unit of competency statement and the elements and the criteria. So for example, the extent of work, what does it mean? The plant work, major overhaul, replacement work, machine modification. So these are ranges. When you say ranges, a one of these must be within the competence of our candidate or our worker. So not necessarily all of this. That is why it's called range of variables. So these are, in a simple word, it can be said like these are suggested theories that your worker should have or possess in order for him to execute the practical element or practical demonstration of the competency. Because when we see competence, it's not only talking about the ability into the knowledge level, but it talks about to the practical level, sorry, but it also deal with the theoretical level. Because the intention is that we are trying to tell the people that a safety critical element must be considered. So if we are considering to the safety critical element of our operations and maintenance, therefore you must have some kind of theoretical inputs or information that can support to your performance of work. So the evidence guide, this is the last document, last level of the documentation of the standard, sorry. The critical aspect of competencies, meaning with this list of critical aspects, we can tell that the competency can be addressed. Why? Because the idea behind even even in the UK and Australia, which is adopted by the Philippine concept, Philippine setup, is that there is what we call meeting the minimum criteria. So if the candidate able to meet the minimum criteria, we can say that he is competent to do the job. And we have to know that evaluating these people, we cannot tell that we are incompetent of doing the job. We cannot say that it is a it is socially incorrect, I would say, if you have to say this guy is incompetent. Rather, you will evaluate him as not yet competent, meaning there is certain level or degree of performance criteria and element that the technician or the mechanic should meet before we can say that he is competent. So take note that our evaluation, our assessment to our worker is between only competent and not yet competent. So we will not use the word incompetent. It is quite offensive. So let me move on to the job and task analysis linked to competency standard. So job and task analysis, we have to revisit some terms and definitions. So job analysis, the identification of job duties and tasks, as what I have explained. And the task analysis, the identification of the steps, the knowledge required in performing particular job and or duties, the tools, safety factors, which is one consideration, and performance standards, which are the performance criteria related to one or more tasks. I will skip to this slide and then I will share another one. I let you see a standard that is uh, okay. Is my screen visible? The PDF file that I am sharing, is it visible from your end?
Yes po, sir.
Okay, thank you. So this is newly drafted competence standards for complex project leadership framework. Okay, so this is created by the Australian group to 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 develop a certain competency standard for project management because they believe that perhaps due to many practices, and if you believe the PMI has also their own book of knowledge, I would say the BUK. So they're thinking that perhaps it's high time to develop a project leadership standard for this project managers or project manager practitioner to refer to in terms of training development and assessment. So look at this standard. It's quite simple in terms of structuring and in terms of listing. So they are only listing about 5 units of competencies for this standard. One, drive systematic thinking and action. If you can look at the statement, it is really started with the action word. Focus strategically on delivering project outcomes. Engage collaboratively with stakeholders. Exercise contextual leadership awareness. Apply system governance and delivery. So it is uh, the same construction or structure as what we have in our very own Tesla. And then look at this. Although the formatting is not followed as what we have seen in the previous slide that Tesla had promoted, but the essence behind remains the same. So they have the code, the unit of competence, drive systemic thinking and action, and then we have the element here. And then along with that are the performance criteria. So we can tell really that our country is on a right track in terms of competency-based implementation. I hope Chad will be able to catch up this kind of standard. My experience in education is that when I took up my master's degree, the UK curriculum already formatted in competency standard. So that means they are up to what the government is mandating from them as the group of academics. Hang on for a while. Uh, it is, bear with me for I cannot reach this. Step. Mm. Okay. Sorry for that, for the mess, because to be to be honest, I just settled here. I don't have any furniture. I don't have a desk. I don't have yet on. I have only a small chair. I use it for this presentation. So task analysis. Let me proceed. Identification of the steps, knowledge required, tools, safety and safety factors, and performance standards, as what I have explained and connected it to the format of competency standard. And then what else we are going to revisit here? These are lists, but please don't be confined. I would say don't be so strict about the listing. If you notice the Australian standard, they have only a list of 5 duties. So it's not necessary that you have to reach until 12 duties. 6 enough, even 4 enough, as long as those duties are critical duties. Like when we say critical duties, these are the duties that really needed or required for a particular job can be performed. So because there is a principle that I would like to share with you, we have to look for the need to know rather than the nice to know. So if we have to connect that statement, I rather look for fewer listing of the duties that can be translated into unit of competency, rather have plenty, because there is a saying that less is more. And then for tasks, not necessary that you will reach until 20 or until 200 tasks and every duty. 5 to 6 tasks enough to support the particular duty. And then the steps, specific elements or activities required to perform a task, wherein a criteria can be stated, can be specified for the task to be complied with. So the DACOM, this one, the abbreviation DACOM is defined as developing a curriculum. This is already uh, existed for quite some time when I started my journey in vocational training in the mid-90s. So this has been developed by Dr. Robert Norton in Canada that he said, why not create a kind of a research chart that we can make use for job and task analysis. The research chart, what I'm trying to tell here is that the graphical presentation that I have presented at the very beginning of our session. So the relationship behind is that in the in the hierarchy of documentation and hierarchy of formatting the competence standards is that we have the job analysis. For example, for example, in the case of Pat, if I have to analyze the job function of Pat, is that most probably she has a duty like organize webinar event. Now, that is a duty of Pat. That this is my assumption. And then on that, that is the job analysis, the duty listing. And then after that, you can make a task analysis for that particular duty, which describe on how to do it. So for example, Pat has a duty of organize webinar event. So what are the possible tasks that she has to perform in order for him to comply his duty as organizer of webinar event? So probably one, uh, coordinating with the speaker, coordinate with the speaker, and then second, invite participants for the event. So in this task now, can support Pat's compliance to his to her function as a organizer of web event. And then here, the listing here, it can be the basis for you, like performance standards, step supporting tools can be the basis for you to create the performance criteria and the range of variables. So these are what we call the enablers. So how are tasks being formulated? I have given here an example, a straightforward example, a very simple, simply written. So, for example, mount bearing. Me as a mechanical maintenance guy, I should know how to mount bearing. What you're going to mount, the question is simply bearing. But the question next further is that how will you mount the bearing? What is the basis for you that the bearing is mounted correctly? That is why we create the performance criteria, the statements of performance criteria that will support to our element, our task, which is the mounting of bearing. Another tool that we can use for job and task analysis are the job tree approach. The one that I have presented at the beginning, the graphical presentation, that was a DCOM research chart. So designed by Robert Norton. That is not my own design. And this is common, the tree approach. So the tree approach can be used for job and task analysis as a tool for you to identify the duties and listing of tasks and the steps. So it's if you have ERP or if you are familiar with WBS, I would say, the work breakdown structure, you can make use of that as a tool for you to make a job and task analysis. If you are quite conversant with that or quite familiar on the work breakdown, on the work breakdown, WBS work breakdown structure that is being used in the project management or even used in your ERP development, and then you can make use of that as a tool for you for job and task analysis. So these are the suggested tools that I can see for creating or for organizing job and task analysis. So I have here a presentation of an example of the job and task analysis. In this case, is commissioning technician, specific for mechanical discipline. Because in the commissioning and startup project, we have different disciplines working as a commissioning tech. Commissioning tech electrical, commissioning tech mechanical, commissioning tech INC, instrumentation and control, and commissioning tech civil. So here, and there is also commissioning tech multidiscipline, a guy that has competency in mechanical, electrical, instrumentation and control. So these are the people considered as multidiscipline commissioning tech. So the job function is commissioning tech, mechanical. So one of his duties, perform rotating equipment commissioning and perform mechanical completion certification. This certification I'm saying, don't don't think this as a certification going to an assessment. No, it's a certification to complete that a certain equipment and the auxiliaries already acceptable based on the check sheets that being specified for completing a certain equipment during commissioning. That is why a commissioning tech should have this kind of competence performing mechanical completion certification, because at that time he will be able to identify the punch list. When you say punch list, those are components which are not functional, and then he will report it to the construction that this particular component is not functional, and therefore the construction team will should address those concerns in the punch listing. So that is about the perform mechanical completion certification. So it's not about the assessment that you will be certifying. So here on the left hand side is a perform rotating equipment commissioning. This is a duty that a mechanical tech should possess. And then breaking it down, I broke it down like based on the practices that we have in our plant, because in every plant is unique. Therefore, maybe in another plant, these are not the definition of their task or specification of their task. So based on what we are doing in our project, these are the common tasks that a mechanical tech should should perform. So carry out rotating equipment inspection, carry out shop alignment, implement rotating equipment testing. So with these three building blocks, this task can support for this particular duty. So if I have to bring you visually to the setup of competence standard documentation, the perform rotating equipment commissioning is the unit of competency. And then the elements to that particular unit of competence are these. Element 1, carry out rotating equipment inspection. Element 2, carry out shop alignment. Element 3, implement rotating equipment testing. So therefore, if you are going to plan to organize a competency standards development, you can have a workshop with your subject matter experts and try to have a brainstorming, a focus group discussion or FGD that we will try to hang on guys, we'll try to sit down here and talk about in your particular role, what are your key duties that we can say that if you have this particular duty, you will be able to function as a mechanic, you will be able to function as IT admin, you will be able to function as a receptionist. We'll try to list it down. So a focus group discussion will do, and then you try to list it down, the task, and then that task can be translated into elements. So therefore, if you have this kind of exercise, I would say, an approach in analyzing the job and task in each job function, these are useful for you to create the competence standards. It will not be too difficult for you then to organize the competency standards. So this is one, as I have said, job tree approach. You can make use your existing competence in WBS, work breakdown structuring, under the project management skills that you have or you under your ERP system. And you can make use the design of Dr. Robert Norton, the DECOM research chart format. This chart that I am presenting here is the same as the chart that I had explained in the previous slides at the beginning. So what I am trying to tell here is that if you have such kind of documentation, you can tell the HR group, hi, hey HR, if you would like to have a competency profile of our employee in each job function, I am ready. I have here. You can make this as your competency profiling. The listing of the duties and the tasks. These are already organized, defined, and specified by our key personnel, subject matter experts, and our line manager. So the HR will say, would be happy. At least I have now the competency profile, and then I can verify it with my job description. So every time I have to hire, if in the HR side, if I have every time if I have to hire personnel, I will refer to this job competency profile, wherein the outcomes coming from your job and task analysis. The DICOM process, as you can see, this format is just similar or the same, exactly the same of what I have presented previously. The principle of DECOM is to identify competency gaps that lead to needs assessment. So therefore, if there are gaps in our personnel in terms of performances, we can make use of this as our tool to identify what are the competency gaps. We can create our needs assessment. So why I am telling this, if you are to convert this documentation, this take-home research chart into a survey questionnaire, if you are if you have a working familiarity with the survey questionnaire, you can create this in your survey questionnaire, listing of your questionnaire at the same time on the right hand side probably would be a numerical rating 1 to 5. So task 1, and then you have to put a rating of 1 to 5, what is his proficiency in terms of this task. So that can be used as your tool for competency analysis and then gather all the data. So you have now from qualitative data, you can now convert into a quantitative data. So you can make a good presentation in terms of graphical, in terms of numbers. You can present to your manager, to your boss that, hey boss, based on what I have gathered, this is the statistics that we have. So from qualitative, because job and task analysis is a qualitative exercise, and then you can convert it into a quantitative exercise as well. This model that I am presenting, I got this during our training in Germany. Our professor is Dr. Rodolph People. This guy is a very good guy. He started as a craftsman, tool and die craftsman in their country, and then he became master craftsman, and then he became a vocational trainer, and then he earned his master's degree until PhD. The good thing in Europe is that they will not discriminate your educational background. You can enroll to the uni even without a degree. If you have a diploma or you have a master craftsmanship certification, you can enroll directly to a master's degree program. So there's no discrimination. Only I think in the Philippines is quite different here. It's quite rigorous. So even me, when I enrolled my master's degree in the UK, they never asked my diploma in mechanical engineering. The only requirement that I should pass the IELTS, the IELTS, and then that's it. uh, this model here, as I would like to explain, look at here. I created an arrow direction up as a real word and down is training. What I'm trying to tell here in this arrow is that in this side of the model, these are the industry exercise, the industry setup. And then here is the training center setup or a classroom-based setup, or I would say classroom-based training instruction. So look at this model. At the top is the occupational area. What is occupational area? That this is, for example, in the mechanical engineering, one of the occupational area is machine shop. So in that machine shop, you have the job title as machinist. In that job title, machinist has duties. One of the duty is operate lathe machine or operate milling machine. And then in that duty, breaking down into tasks, what are the tasks that needed for you to operate a lathe machine? And then what are the steps in order for you to address all of these tasks so that you can have a performance of your duty to comply your function as a machinist. And then going down here, the performance standards specification or known as the performance criteria. And then on the academic side or the training side, because some of our industry, they have already a training center being run by themselves. And that is wonderful. That is a very good setup. I really appreciate that the industry should have that kind because in the Middle East, here, based on my experience, the company has its own training center operating for the education and development of their personnel. Though I have experience in Procter and Gamble last time, in the mid 90s when the Philippine government said that, hey guys, you cannot operate in Manila already. You should move to somewhere else. So from Tondo, we moved to Laguna, Science Park. The plant has a training center, a very cute training center, but it's functional. So we have training and mechanical maintenance, PLC programming, pneumatics, and this kind of training program that we have attended and we have availed and we have designed as well from the Procter and Gamble Philippines. So the enabling objectives here, as you can see, What do you mean by enabling objectives? When we say enabling, and then I will use the word enabler, these are the objectives that will support for you or for the trainee to perform this job function. Okay? So, for example, the essential technical knowledge, the related knowledge, for example, in the machining, I would say, if you are a machinist, you should have a knowledge on the parts of the machine, the parts of the lathe machine. So these are enablers. For example, the types of tools that you are going to use in machining. So these are enablers. And then the performance guide checklist, this is now referring to the criteria that you have created in your standard that can serve as your checklist. And in fact, it can be used also for evaluation as a tool known as rubric. If you are familiar with the evaluation tool, there is what we call rubric. Your qualitative information or data can be converted into quantitative data using a rubric. So we have here down the steps that we use in our training setup, our training system, and then normally we have the written test and then associated with practical demonstrations or the performance test. And then the practice instruction delivery, the theoretical and practical. Note that the competency-based model of instruction is a student-centered instruction and also flexible. So here on the left-hand side, it's not really that adapted in the competency-based training because we are focused more on the development of the training, not the development of the instructor or the teacher. So it is a trainee-centered instruction and the student-centered instruction. What I am doing now is a teacher-centered instruction because we don't have the chance to interact each other due to limitation of the modality of instruction. Bloom's domains of learning. So Benjamin Bloom is a education psychologist and academics who discovered that we have to consider the how people think, how people feel, how people act. And then that is the foundation in formulating learning objectives. Let us move on. So Benjamin Bloom, to those who are graduate of education, for sure you know him, and those who have relatives who are teachers in our country, for sure they know this guy. They know we owe a lot from him, from his theories, from his principles. I started my journey in industrial education in the mid 80s. I already learned a lot from this guy, and I said, "Oh, wow, wonderful! Without this, I do not know what will happen to the structuring of our curriculum." So Benjamin Bloom said that the taxonomy of learning, or simply the classification system used to appraise or to evaluate learning, stated in behavioral terms, which was developed by Benjamin Bloom. It is defined by him that behavioral terms because when we see learning process, when we enter to a certain learning event, maybe we enter one. After the learning event, we exited from the learning event, we become two. So there is a change of a behavior. So his definition is straightforward and easily understandable. So what are the domains of learning? So this is what he said. Areas of learning as results of the classification study of Bloom. This is a tool for understanding how people think. This is what I have said at the beginning, previously rather, feel and act. So looking at the methods of teaching, because we are in the HR practitioner, or if you are into training, at least you have a background why the construction of learning objectives being praised in this statement because of this principle, domains of learning. We have the cognitive domain, which is the knowledge, information, affective domain, which is the attitude, values, and appreciations. And in a real world, that is where safety come in. So all safety information that being promoted in our plant and the domains of learning, that is the affective side, that is the affective domain. And then the psychomotor domain is the practical exercises or the skeletal muscle use and coordination. So he has defined three domains of learning. Cognitive domain, I repeat, affective domain, and psychomotor domain. And then he further identified and described the cognitive domain into various levels and to 6 levels. So from knowledge until evaluation. So if you have to look at the competency standards, the frame, I would say the structure of the competency standards, it is really addressing to the theories and principles of Benjamin Bloom. So the standard pick up the knowledge, the standard pick up the comprehension, the standard pick up the application, the standard pick up the analysis, the standard pick up the synthesis and evaluation. So that is why I intentionally incorporate this slide for us to relate that competence standard, there is certain theories and principle behind why it is being designed and developed for training purposes. So what are the types of objectives? There are two types. Terminal objectives, meaning our aim, and then the enabling objectives. So our final goal of instruction, the terminal objectives, and enabling objectives, the behaviors that help achieve the final goal. Okay, and then taken from the instructional analysis, this is a different side of our discussion. We will not go into that. It's a different discussion. A more precise and singly written. So simple, we have the action verb and then the qualifier. That's it. So how to write an objective? We have to consider that there are parts that the objective comprise with. One is the preamble or the intro statement. The intro expresses in terms of what the learner or the performer will be able to do, not what you are presenting. So that is why in my objectives at the beginning of our discussion, I stated 3 objectives. If you notice the flow, those objectives not necessarily have a content that I have to deliver here, because my intention is that for you to perform after this session. So these are your enablers. So the preamble, the intro statement is simply like this. At the end of this session or at the end of this lesson, at the end of this module, it's up to you to construct it. You will be able to, or the participants will be able to, or the trainees will be able to, or the employees will be able to. Another one example, after completing this session, the trainees will be able to. So this is the preamble, the intro statement. And the next is the performance standards. List of the performance statement, list of skill and knowledge, the learner to achieve, verb specifying a behavior or performance with reference to Bloom's taxonomy of learning. For example, define, describe, identify, match, name, record, classify, describe, estimate, summarize. Later on in our presentation, we present the verbs that should be avoided, not to be used in objective writing.
Sa
Moving forward, we have the criteria statement.
na-try na
A phrase that continues
Okay po.
stating
Nung sa
how well
highlights
the
po.
task must be performed.
Meron si PSI na separate slide.
Okay. Is there any question? None so far. I'll continue. So, example of the criteria statement according to, based on, in accordance to, or within the tolerance. These are the criteria statement. And then if we have to group it together to compose an objective, it is written like this. For terminal objective, for performance terminal objective. At the end of this module, you will be able to write a bearing specification according to manufacturer standard. So that is the objective of the trainee. That is not your objective as a trainer. Okay? That is for the trainee. And then another one, given the necessary materials, tools, instruments, and equipment, the trainees must be able to install 6220 anti-friction rolling bearing into a motor shaft in accordance to manufacturer specification. So that is terminal objective. Enabling objective, example, at the end of this 30-minute lesson, the trainees will be able to interpret screw thread specifications, read vernier caliper in both metric and English units, set outside micrometer to 0. So you notice that our statement is always started with a verb. And then these are the verbs to be avoided. Comprehend, understand, know, remember, contemplate, perceive, enjoy, consider, learn, experience, appreciate, grasp. So we have to avoid these verbs. The reason why it's difficult to measure understanding. It's difficult to measure comprehension. Okay, it's difficult to measure how you remember. So that is why it's not measurable at all. These verbs difficult to measure. So it is better to use this kind of phrases. So once you learn how to construct the objective, and then simply that is your element that can be put into your competency standards. So to wrap up things is that you have the duty statement, and then you have the element statement, and then you have the performance criteria. That is basically forming the competency standard. So that is why the title of this presentation is that job and task analysis as basis for competency standards development. So if you have an outcome of your job and task analysis, which data or statements I would say are written in a manner that written like learning objectives or really written as learning objectives, and then you are good to go. You have the good data, and then you can put it in your repository. Then that's it. You can create further your competency standard. So when I attended the conference last year, one of the speaker has a topic on garbage in, garbage out. So we have to ensure that the data that we have created or outcome of our job and task analysis is not a garbage. Otherwise, it will be out as a garbage as well. So that is my presentation. I hope it is just enough for us to absorb this kind of information. Thank you so much for your attendance. I really appreciate that you are interested to this because in the future, hopefully, the Association of Maintenance and Reliability Practitioners of the Philippines can create a core group to have a workshop in developing a certain competence standard that can be useful to our industry. Thank you so much.
All right. So, thank you, Sir Edwin. But we do have a bit of some questions for the question and answer session.
Okay.
So
Uh,
let's just going to answer some questions. So we received in the chat Sir Michael Guerrero asking if certification is different with validation. Validate validation.
okay. Okay. Let me put it this way. The certification, the process undergoes certain series of assessments before a certain individual can be conferred with a certification. The validation, it is an exercise or a process that will check how the assessment being conducted with regard to the standard. Because one of the rule in competency-based assessment is that how we ensure that the assessment process and the evidence that the candidate had submitted for certification is valid. So the validity can occur during the scrutiny of the evidence and the assessment process referring to the competency standard. So if you don't have a standard, it is difficult to validate certain certification process. So this is my thinking about this question. I hope I was able to explain it.
Sir Michael Guerrero, would you like to expound on that, or were you able to get your answer?
It was answered legibly now. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, okay. And we have
Thank you,
another.
Mike.
Thank you, Sir Michael. We have another question from Sir Aldrin Ribalde. So, what are the national or international certifications to be a certified assessor?
Okay. So the we should not be trapped into any commercial advertising. I would say like that directly because I'm afraid that we will be victimized by this claiming organization that they're training international certification. The accepted outside PH certification for trainers and assessors. One is Australia, second is UK, third is Scotland, fourth is Ireland. If you have this certification from these countries, Australia, UK, and Scotland, and then that is considered as not internationally accepted. Why? Because they use the same standard. Although there is a deviation, but it is accepted as internationally recognized. However, PH also the trainers and assessment certification is accepted by the UK. I have an example, not to the training and assessment certification. I was a trainer of a vocational tech institute wherein the graduates are diploma, the 3-year diploma technician. Since our transcript of records and the training implementation is into a format of competency-based training, and then our graduates easily entered Canada, easily entered Australia, easily entered UK because the transcript are written the way they wrote it in their academe and in their embassy approval. So the transcript of records, it's not stated like Math 101, Thermodynamics 101. It's not like that. It's the statement of the competency, and that's the embassy is looking for. So going back to international acceptance is that as long as the training is formatted in the competency standards, and then it is accepted. No discrimination at all. I hope I had shared something to that question.
All right, so we received the thumbs up. I guess that answered it. Lastly, sir, if I may ask the last question, is a competency standard a nationally or government regulated document as regards to training implementation?
Not necessarily. If uh, if you are implementing a training in-house inside your plant, it's not necessary to have a competency standard to be regulated because that is your own standard. At the end of the day, the government or TESDA, I would say, is not the one paying the bills of our workers. It's our plant who pay our workers. So therefore, the competency standard you can create because you want that your workers are safe of doing their job. So without this, we don't have a basis on how safe our workers are doing. why TESDA is creating a regulation on competencies? Because they want to ensure that their graduates, our TESDA graduates, are safe in performing their job in the plant. But since we are a private practitioner, and then we are creating our training program for our own business goal, so therefore, it's not necessary to be regulated.
Sir, just another question just came in. I'm not sure if you've already answered it, but relative to TESDA's model of competency description, what constitutes
Mhm.
having NC2 to NC4 graduation? Does it have something to do with the years of experience of the student?
I am not quite familiar with how TESDA is uh, defining it in terms of experiences. But the way I look at it, because last year I took the NC2 for mechatronic servicing, the way I look at it is the degree of difficulty of competence. So it's not necessarily that if you have 5 years experience in that trade, for example, and then you are holding NC2, and then you will apply for NC3, it's not necessary that your experience will a guarantee that you can get the NC3, but rather you should have complied the degree of difficulty that TISDA has defined in their training regulation. So because the principle of competency-based training and curriculum implementation is not a time-based. It's a multiple entry and multiple exit principle. What I'm trying to say is that if I have a 5 employees right now trained to this level in C1, if only three will exit from NC1 going to NC2, it will not matter to me because what we are trying to address here is their degree of competence. So they are not yet competent to meet the requirement into NC2. So this is the idea behind why this is not time based. Thank
So,
you.
yep, thank you for that. Sir, can we, do you think you can take two more questions? Will that be all right?
Uh, okay.
So,
Okay.
the first one we have, hold on, sorry. Should SMEs, this one,
Hmm.
sorry, undergo trainer development prior to curriculum development?
Yeah, that's a very good question. A straightforward answer, yes, they will, because the SME should be trained in the aspect of the principles of training or the principles of teaching, and then they will be trained in terms of how people behave, and they will be trained on different learning styles, and they will be trained to mirror themselves as a trainer if they have to foot into the shoes of the mechanic or worker. So it is quite important that they will undergo a that kind of training for the SMEs.
And then let's take this last one. So, in most
Yeah.
industrial plants, one challenge is the implementation of training and assessment since workers, employees are performing to the job once hired. How do we resolve this?
Okay, so if the challenge, for example, is implementation per se, the approach is that you should have some kind of sponsor. If you are the lead implementer, what I'm trying to say, the sponsor, for example, the HR manager is your sponsor. The plant manager is your sponsor. So have this sponsor for you to explain that the implementation is going to be like this for our assessment of our existing workforce. And now, since they are existing workforce, and then they have already a certain degree of competence, if you have that outcome of job and task analysis, and then you have that competence standards, your standards will tell the degree of proficiency, proficiency level 1, proficiency level 2, proficiency level 3. Why? Because, for example, in engineering, perform engineering measurements. If your proficiency to that is level 1, so when you entered as a level 1, so for level 2, what should be the aspect of assessment in terms of engineering measurements? probably calibration of the measuring instrument. So you don't know that. You know how to use measuring instrument, but you cannot calibrate. So that is your level of proficiency. So this is the way how to implement it. So what I'm trying to say is that if you have really difficulty of planning it out, is that try to chunk the duties and the task that is absorbable by the people on implementing the assessment. Because one issue that we can or I can see in the implementation of the assessment and plan is the assessor. The assessor should be no bias in their decision in terms of the assessment outcome. And this is one aspect that we have to look at. So that is my suggestion, that try to have a sponsor in the implementation, and that sponsor should support you throughout the way of the implementation. Thank you.
Okay. So, thank you, sir. Actually, another follow-up question just came in from
Okay.
Sir Michael Guerrero, but I was not able to follow if this is still the same from before. So much like duty, task, ability based, to train the trainers is a must for. Um, sorry, my screen froze. For those to develop the competency model.
Oh yeah, it is a must. It is because they train the trainers. Uh, this is the venue for you that these people that will develop the competency standards or the SMEs can have an opportunity to brainstorm on how your competency standards be organized with respect to achieving your business goal. So without this kind of session, I'm afraid that if you directly have a an analyst or an HR specialist to create the job training analysis and to have a competency standard development, I'm afraid that the content would not be sufficient enough to support your business goals. So, but try to look at a trainer's training that will not run for 40 hours. I would like to give you an example. There is a very good training model in the US. In fact, uh, it is being moved to Japan as well, adapted by Japan. And this model is a since World War II. You can imagine since World War II. And in fact, the Philippine Manufacturing Corporation before, PMC, which is PNG, also they are applying this kind of approach. Try to look at the website TWI, Training Within an Industry. Their trainers training is only a 10-hour trainers training, not that stretch until 40 hours. So why I am saying this, because I can see the constraints in training our people longer enough inside the classroom, and then their productivity will get lesser. So there is an approach that can be functional or doable in our situation if we have a constraints in the timing. So try to look at the TWI, Training Within Industry. They have different models of how to give instruction or train the trainers model. Not a 40-hour, but it's an only a 10-hour approach. Thank you.
All right. So, thank you, Sir Edwin, for answering those wonderful questions, and to our participants who are very participative. If you do have any other questions, you can always send us a message, and we will coordinate it with Sir Edwin. So,
Yeah, sure.
yes, I would like to take this moment if I can grab the screen pull it from you, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So, I would just like to thank our speaker for
Wow.
today. So this is a certificate of appreciation awarded to Mr. Edwin Heredia in recognition of his outstanding contribution as a speaker in the Job and Task Analysis Basis for Competency Standard Development webinar. His dedication, expertise, and commitment to the task at hand were instrumental in ensuring the success of the event. So, given this 22nd day of February 2024, signed by Mr. Erwin Bernal, our President of the Erudite Reliability Services OPC, we thank you very much, Sir Edwin, for gracing
You're
us with your
welcome.
time. And
Welcome.
despite your busy
Welcome.
schedule, with your
No
settlement
problem.
agents, ano, Sir,
Yeah, I appreciate. Yeah, I really appreciate the attendance of the people. I can see how eager they are, and
and
let
there are
us
lots
hope
of
for the best in
questions.
our industry. Yeah, let us hope for the
Mm,
best because the end goal, the end of the day, we should have a workforce safe and zero accidents. That is our end goal.
mhm. All right. So
Right?
that concludes job and task analysis by Sir Edwin. So how about a round of applause for our speaker for today? Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
that
I
virtual
can see
round
the
of
icons. Yeah, I can see the icons clapping. Thank you so much.
applause. Yeah, thank you once again talaga, Sir Edwin. And
Okay, you're welcome.
so we promised a raffle giveaway uh today. So but before that, let me just plug in some announcements. So yeah, we would like to invite you all to the second run of the Asset Performance Management Lead Conference. So leadership, engineering, and advantage. This year's theme we're tackling on sustainable futures, engineering, and asset management for global goals. It will happen on July 3 to 5 in the Manila Citadines Bay City, Manila, Philippines. And early bird registration is currently ongoing. It's until March 26. So register quickly. And if yun nga, just another back ano lang po, no. So Sir Edwin is actually one of our speakers last year under the leadership and engineering track and won the best presentation award. And he also mentioned um, others who spoke as well on the conference last year. So rest assured,
Thank you
we
for
will.
that award.
Yeah, officer
I
actually
really appreciate.
really great presentation po talaga. Ayan.
Okay, thank you
And
so much. Thanks
yan,
God for that.
so and to mention na rin po, no,
Okay.
since yun nga po, Sir Edwin was a speaker last year, we are also still calling for abstracts. So if you are someone who would like to share your knowledge further on leadership and engineering, asset and risk management, RAMs, and asset integrity, you can submit to us your abstract and have our advisory council check it so you can present rin sa conference this July. So for those who would like to. Right. So
All right.
that.
There was a question, by the way.
Mhm.
There was a message pop up that if a PowerPoint presentation can be shared. Okay, I will share it. I will send it to Pat, and then hopefully Pat will send it to the participants for them as a will serve them as a reference for the work.
Oh, yeah, yes, sir. Definitely po.
Okay.
So we will just
Okay.
send it to you all. Also, almost
Yeah.
forgot. It would also be great to know your insights regarding this webinar. So please take a few more moments just to answer this form. I've sent it over to the chat, a Google form. So it's just 6 questions. This will help us to understand if we did great on this webinar. And this is the first this year, but not the last. So there are more coming. We will keep you updated through our social media. We have our LinkedIn and Facebook. So make sure you follow us or connect to us there so you are updated on the latest events that we do. All right. Okay. So
Okay.
I actually just saw Sir Vince entered. So if he would like to share a few more words before we do the raffle.
Thank you, Pat, and thank you, everyone who joined us today for our webinar. And thank you again, Edwin, for gracing our first webinar of the year, starting
Yeah,
all with
sure.
job task analysis, basis for competency development. I'm very passionate about this topic, and I'm very glad that Edwin was able to share with us his expertise, even though there are time zone difference. I would like to just say that I would like to invite everyone who are here for a group that I am organizing, which is called gonna be a community of practice. So kanina sinabi ni Edwin that, you know, we should be collaboratively doing our part in uh, building competencies and competency framework for our organization, but I would like to take it on the level where it can be a platform where we can collaborate regardless of the industry or sector that you belong to. So in the next few days, I'll be sending out a letter, an email to you based on the registered email that you have used on the registration, where if you would like to be part of that community of practice, where we start talking about building a competency framework for certain job titles, job roles that are common among industries, primarily in the operations and maintenance group. I'd be more than happy to have you on that community of practice. So please stay tuned for that email, and then hopefully you can find time to uh, pitch your ideas and share your insights among other practitioners in the field. So, all right, there you go. So thank you once again. And I would like Patty to segue na to the raffle. No?
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Just ano rin po, no? So thank you po, Miss Jeline. I just got notified na the form's not giving access. So we will try this again and we will send it to you na lang din po along with the presentation. So you can answer it by then if that would be all right. So if we send it to you, it would be very much appreciated if you give us your feedback regarding this webinar. All right. So, as promised, Miss Joy, my colleague, would be sharing her screen. So she had gathered the attendees for today for the raffle. So you are going to win a JBL speaker, a Bluetooth speaker over here. So if you are not on this call, pasa po natin na. So mag-ano po tayo agad if you are here. Right? If you are called. To be fair for everyone. Okay, Miss Joy?
So we have how many? 42
We
potential,
have 49 entries
49
here,
entries.
yes. And we are 42 participants, so baka po yung iba umalis. So tingnan po natin. So Sir Joel Torres, are you here? Mag-hi ka para ano.
Turn on your mic and camera, please. Joel Torres here.
Ay, nandiyan si Sir. All right. So, congratulations to Sir Jamel Torres. We will email you through the another email you used to register here sa ating event. So, and once again, everyone, this is not the last. So, I hope to see you once again sa next nating webinar and upcoming webinar to be announced soon. So,
Can we have
um,
a photo? Group photo?
yeah. Um,
For those who have a camera, please turn them on and
Yeah,
then say quick.
it's good. It's good to have. Yeah.
yan. So, nakita
Yeah. At least I see the faces now of the participants.
That's si Sir Joel nananalo.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Congratulations.
okay.
yan, nag-open na ng marami. Yan. So, I'll
Yeah,
ask
yeah,
Miss
our
Joy rin for help, no? Capturing all these wonderful faces.
okay.
Alright. So, smile lang po tayo.
Okay.
Okay? Okay na ba?
Okay, done.
Okay na.
All right. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Alright. Thank you
Thank
po. Thank you,
you. Thank
everyone.
you,
And
everybody. Yeah.
thank you, sir. See you again
You're
next
welcome.
soon.
Yeah.